Hello and welcome into the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Yates, and joining me from beautiful Baton Rouge is senior writer Mike Craven. Craven, we're doing this podcast on Sunday morning. I need whatever Mike Elko said to the A&M guys at halftime to get me kickstarted here because A&M outscores LSU 35-7 in the second half to go 8-0 for the first time since 1992. So A&M in the last 2 years against LSU has outscored the Tigers 66-13 in the second half. And then Marcel Reed in the postgame says, Elko definitely said some things. I can't remember every detail, but it was aggressive for sure, which I can't remember means I cannot possibly tell you what he said.
Yeah, 100%. Because in the first half, A&M's down 18-14 at halftime, and it's all because of A&M mistakes. The block punt for the safety in the first quarter when they're up 14-7. Reed throws an interception in the end zone when they're up 14-9, about to go up 21-9. Des Ricks gets that dead ball personal foul on after a third down stop that extends a drive that ends up becoming a touchdown where LSU takes the lead. So when you looked at it, and we're sitting in the press box, and Texas A&M's dominating the game, and it's 18-14, and this is how you lose in Death Valley. This is how you get upset. This is how you lose those road games. And so you kind of look around, and it's oh no, here is how the magic happens in Baton Rouge, and then they come out and just dominate it. Go down, get a scoring drive, and then it felt like the KC Concepcion punt return is what really ended the game.
I was about to say the same thing. The tightrope down the sideline was sick. I had a buddy of mine who's a lifelong A&M fan say Casey Concepcion is easily the best wide receiver he's watched at Texas A&M, and that includes Mike Evans. What do you think about that? Is that heat of the moment, or is that for real?
I think it's more exciting.
Okay.
Mike Evans is a bigger, kind of more dominant, old school, traditional wide receiver. Concepcion can take a touch and go 80 from anywhere. Punt return, catch. I think Marcel Reed's going to New York to be a Heisman finalist. He's been excellent, 12
He's
of
got
21,
the juice.
202 yards. The interceptions are a concern. One of those tips, probably not all on him, but the interception in the end zone you can't have, against a better team. That's the kind of stuff that can cost you. But we've seen his legs kind of come to life over the last couple of games, and we thought maybe this one would be a game where Reed could run again. And remember last year, he had all sorts of success on the ground against LSU. The Tigers have been bad against the quarterback run game for a couple of years now. So 202 through the air, 108 on the ground, 4 total touchdowns, outscores LSU on his own. Marcel Reed's been excellent, and the guys around him, Craver, Owens, Concepcion, they're just so fast. There's just an athletic, fast, explosive offense. And the defense, not great, but continues to be really good in high leverage moments, 2 of 12 on third down. I think the second best third down defense in the country behind Ohio State. So these Aggies are a complete football team, and I think they punched their ticket to the college football playoff last night.
So that's what you wrote in the postgame column. They are not just a contender, they are a lock.
I think there was 2 teams going into the weekend that you could write in Sharpie onto your college football projections, and that's Ohio State and Indiana. Leaving week 9, I think you can add Texas A&M to that, because remember, 10-2 in the SEC, especially with the road win over Notre Dame, who probably wins out and gets in there as well, gets you into the dance. And so you have Samford left at home, kind of the body bag SEC late in the season game. So you're basically 9-0 with a home game against South Carolina, a road trip to Missouri, who just probably lost their quarterback, a road trip to Texas, who may have lost theirs as well for at least a couple weeks, who isn't struggling. So if you win one of those 3 games, you're in. Last year, it felt like A&M at 7-1 was a mirage. Like this is snake oil stuff, right? Like they're not as good as that record suggested. I think this is just who they are. I think they're one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the country, a favorite to win the SEC, and I think you can Sharpie them into your CFP projections. They might end up being the 11th seed because they end up losing 2 out of their last 3 and they're 10-2, but they're in. I think that they're going to be in unless they blow that home game to South Carolina and lose both of those. They'd have to go 1-3 down the stretch to miss out.
Mm-hmm. I want your review of Baton Rouge, Death Valley, and give me your first half review because the second half there was no one there. It was shocking to see the crowd, how they all walked out on Brian Kelly.
Yeah, walked out on Brian Kelly. The ones who remained chanted to fire Brian Kelly from the student section. I think it's the best place I've ever watched a college football game.
And you've been to a lot of places. You've been to the Horseshoe. You've been to Ann Arbor.
I've been to Happy Valley. Before this, I probably would have said Kyle Field. Kyle Field, Happy Valley, the Shoe, I think were my top ones. If we don't count a Rose Bowl in the Rose Bowl or Texas OU in the Cotton Bowl, campus stadiums, that's where I would have had it. It's the food, it's the tailgating, it's the there's a feralness with LSU fans that I think is good for college football.
That you resonate with a little bit.
Yeah, it's just this is how I would say it. If an alien came down to Earth and I had to take them anywhere to go watch a college football game after experiencing Death Valley, that's where I would take them. I think it is the perfect representation, good and bad, of what college football is and what a home atmosphere is and what it's like to be there on a Saturday at night. Especially, it was awesome. It lived up to the hype. And then Marcel Reed at A&M just kind of closed the doors on him.
Yeah, Marcel Reed said, at the end of the game, I want you to be silent so I can hear myself when me and my teammates are celebrating. That's pretty hard quote, but also, dude, it wasn't silent because I could hear the Fire Brian Kelly chants coming through the TV at the end of that game. Yeah, it's over.
It is absolutely over there in Baton Rouge. Texas A&M kind of running through the murderer's row of fired coaches or soon to be fired coaches here in 2025. The schedule is broke. Really nice for the Aggies. And this was a good defensive performance on the road. They had given up as many touchdowns in 2 games on the road as they had in the 5 games at home, like combined, right? Like they were bad on the road against Notre Dame. They're bad on the road against Arkansas. I think that's just those 2 offenses. I don't think that's necessarily a road game thing. I think if they had played Notre Dame and Arkansas at home, it would be flipped. They went on the road. I know they ended up giving up that touchdown late, but for all intents and purposes, they gave up 18 points. 9 of it came off of turnovers. Another 2 came off of the safety. And so, LSU only received the ball once off a kickoff and went down and scored on the Aggies. It was a good defensive performance. Cassius Howell, awesome. The bend he has coming off the corner. I know this is blasphemous, but it's Von Miller-like. He's got that same kind of body bend and angle. I mean, he just went under an LSU left tackle one time and just blew up Nussmeier.
Look at how we're talking about these A&M guys. We're dropping Mike Evans. We're dropping Von Miller. We're talking about the program legends right now.
I mean, this has a chance to be an all-time great football team in terms of most of us who have been alive. Maybe it's not 1939 team or something like that. But these guys are going to be legends in the program. And Marcel Reed is writing himself into the all-time greats at Texas A&M, only a sophomore. So I think this team is really good. I think they're the 3rd best team in the country behind Ohio State and Indiana. And one of those teams is going to lose when they play each other. And so, A&M's got a chance to run the team. I mean, they'll be favored in their last 4. I mean, they could be 12-0 going into Atlanta to play in Alabama in the SEC championship. I don't think that's outlandish. They're that good of a football team.
Well, it's over for Brian Kelly at LSU. It also looked like it was over when Texas played Mississippi State in Starkville. They overcome a 17-point deficit in the 4th quarter for the first time since 2007. Win in overtime, 45-38. This is an amazing stat from Chris Hummer at CBS Sports, friend of the program. Entering Saturday, FBS teams had lost 429 straight games when trailing by at least 17 points with 10 minutes remaining in the 4th quarter. Not Texas.
Not Texas. Yeah, it did feel kind of like the proverbial nail into the coffin there. We're watching it from the press box, just man, what is going on here? The surprising thing to me was the defensive performance. Right? I mean, I think we've gotten used to the offense not scoring a ton of points, kind of being up and down, a little bit clanky and herky-jerky, and that continued to be true, especially through the first 3 quarters against Mississippi State. It was the success that the passing game had Blake Shapen has 381 yards and 4 touchdowns passing the ball. Booth had 99 yards on 24 carries. So if you take away the sacks, Mississippi State averaged 3.7 yards a rush and outrushed them 134 to 101. So I was just surprised with the defensive performance. I know you don't have Michael Taft, but the Longhorns struggled, and for the second straight week, they're lucky to get a win on the road. But in the SEC, I mean, I know it's cliche and dumb. I don't think you apologize for that. Like, they don't ask you how, they ask you how many. Texas wins another one, and they're still in this thing.
Well, it's two things can be true. That was an insane comeback. And also, Sark is correct when he said we can't keep living like this because they're going to die from a heart attack, one. But also, they have won these last 2 games while being the better team for 4% of the time, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And there's something to be said for that. And I think we can I think we both agree that this isn't a college football playoff team.
No, they will not make the college football playoff. I said it when they beat Kentucky last week, and I still say it now after they beat Mississippi State. Good win. College football playoff hopes are over.
So what are you trying to accomplish from here on out in the season?
I think you're trying to get to a New Year's Six bowl where you're in the hunt for an SEC championship college football playoff appearance. I think you want the offense to not look just straight up anemic, which they made progress with that. Arch Manning was the highest graded PFF player. The offensive line is still in shambles, but I think you just need to have exciting offense to end the season. Well, hold on. Let me backtrack. You're trying to accomplish college football playoff. I just am a hater right now and don't think it's possible.
Right. Yeah. Inside the locker room, you still have everything to play for.
Yes, everything's out in front of them.
You only have one SEC loss. You still get to play Georgia. You still get to play Vanderbilt. You still get to play A&M. Like, you control your own destiny. But yes, the rest of us, I think, can look at this team and go, to me, they're playing for next year, and not necessarily in like the traditional sense, but in a identifying who we can ride with. Like, where do we need to go fix this ship? You have 4 or 5 more games to kind of figure that out before the portal really gets going. I'd imagine Texas is very aggressive in it, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I thought Ryan Wingo's emergence was good. I mean, we've been looking for kind of game breakers. Like, where are the playmakers around Arch? He has 185 yards. Mosley, who's been injured for most of the season, he seems like a guy that you can count on. He has 2 touchdowns, including the game winner that was excellent.
I think Mosley's injuries through the beginning of the season are an underrated factor of why Texas offense has struggled. Like, obviously the offensive line is the glaring concern, but they have really missed a key number 2 option. Parker Livingston was that option at the beginning of the year. He also dealt with some injuries. They needed Mosley to be healthy.
Yeah, no, I agree, because now all of a sudden you have some weapons. Especially if Wingo emerges as wide receiver 1 and has that kind of game where you can draw double teams. Now you have DJ Moore and Livingston and Mosley and Jack Indris at tight end, who a really good player. So what is it? 1, 2, 3, 6 different wide receivers with at least 4 catches. So they're spreading around the ball. The Wisner-Baxter backfield, I know both of them have been banged up. Their run game, to me, like, this offense could sorely use some balance. And they just don't get a ton of that. Arch Manning's got to run the ball 10 times, and he gets what looks like a concussion or sounds like a concussion there at the end of the game, kind of because of it, because he just has to. He throws the ball 46 times. He runs the ball 10 times. That's 56 different snaps out of 79. Where you're like completely relying on Arch Manning just going and doing stuff. It's unfair to ask for a player who hasn't been playing his best.
Sark said post-game he's never been more proud of a group of guys. And I think when Mississippi State went up by 17 on that 70-yard shuttle pass, he probably never wanted to strangle a group of guys more. But I haven't seen Sark that fired up post-game in the eyes of Texas, maybe ever. It was like when they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa in 2023.
Well, think about what goes on if they lose that football game. He knew what was waiting for him in the press conference after in terms of the NFL rumors, and we can talk about that if we want to, or we can kind of wait to the midweek show if we want to kind of get into that deeper. But he knew what was waiting for them after that, and that's rough after a loss. Like, after a loss, now all of a sudden, are you the reason that, coaches talk about distractions? Are your people the reason that there was, because the reporter is a very grizzled veteran reporter that didn't come from nowhere, right? And
Yes.
so like there's some kind of smoke out there.
Can I real quick on that, Craven? I saw
Yeah.
Fox College Football tweet out that Steve Sarkisian addresses the false report. That is insane to me because Diana Rossini knows her shit. She is a veteran reporter, and I am not here to say that that was a total false report. I think there was smoke there.
Oh, 100%. To me, there's no way that there wasn't. That doesn't mean like he's had an interview and he's actively behind the scenes talking to people, but like I am under no, I think for sure his people have let it be known that the NFL is an option for him. And why wouldn't it be? He's friends with Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. He wants to be a play caller and be a head coach. Where can you go do that easily now? Like that's what you can go do in the NFL because for all week you don't have to recruit and NIL and transfer portal and all that kind of stuff. You can just game plan. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that the week his play calling is under question and the season isn't going great, that all of a sudden there is this leak out there of like, well, guys, I got options. And if you don't like my play calling here, there are places that I can go. And also, I mean, not to get too far in the weeds here, but if you're Jimmy Sexton and all of your boys or all of your guys are trying to get new jobs, if you make Austin kind of maybe open, there's another reason to lock in some of his clients elsewhere and give them raises, or to drive the money up at Florida or LSU or Auburn when it opens up. Like Texas may open as well. You better get in on Lane and give them up. Like He's
the power broker, man.
There are those games getting played, and so coaches lie, agents lie. I think we can parse words there, but I think that's why there's such this relief and such this excitement. If you're Sark, is one, you were dead. You were dead in the water. You brought the Chris Hummer quote or the stat up, like, they thought they were done, and you go back and you win that game, and that's huge. But you also do it in the face of that, and you have Georgia, Vanderbilt, and A&M left. If you lose to Mississippi State, like, is Texas a bowl game? It can snowball very bad very quickly to win that football game. I totally get why Sark was ecstatic afterwards.
Yeah, I watched the game at happiest hour, and it was the saddest hour for most of that game. But the Ryan Niblett punt return was one of the most electric reactions I've ever seen from a group of Texas fans. He has been sensational this year. Where is Texas without Ryan Niblett?
Probably 2 more losses, or at least 1 more loss. Yeah, he's been awesome. Special teams. That Texas A&M game may just feature punts that go out of bounds. Like neither team's gonna want to punt to the other. But we talked about it in the lead-in show. We thought it'd be lower scoring, but I said if Texas wins this game, they probably need a defensive or a special teams touchdown to kind of help the offense get going. We saw it against Oklahoma, and now we've seen it against Mississippi State. Jelani McDonald had a big game defensively with 14 tackles. That always stands out. And then Anthony Hill kind of proved why he's Anthony Hill.
And I think this was so important for multiple reasons, but also because it showed the defense that you can have an off night and your offense can pick you up. This entire season has been the defense having to play hero ball. And if you let up more than 14 points, you might lose this game. I think this gets Texas defense back in it mentally. Not saying they were ever like checked out, but in the back of your mind, it's got to wear on you if you're a defense and know you have zero margin for error.
It's kind of like the inverse Sawyer Robertson, Josh Hoover thing we've talked about, where like it's human nature to not play 12 straight games that are great. Like you're going to have some, like we call them letdowns, but I think sometimes that insinuates that it's like a mental thing. I just think it's hard to be consistently good weekend. It's not a video game. I do think they miss Michael Taaffe, not even from just his playmaking ability, which is great, but he's the organizer of that unit back there. And there were some busts, and there's a reason that Mississippi State had so much success in the back end. And so they're going to have to figure that part out defensively.
All right, let's go to Houston. They hold off a late rally by number 24, Arizona State. They're up 24-0 entering the fourth quarter. They win 24-16. They don't ask you how. They just ask you how many, like you say, Craven. And the Cougs are going to be ranked. The AP poll hasn't come out just yet, but it's the first signature win of the season for the Cougars, who have been 7-1. They've been excellent this year, but they've also had a bit of a cupcake schedule. This was the first signature win.
Yeah, this is the first eyebrow raised national win. Right. I mean, like, we have been paying attention. Locals have been paying attention. I think nationally there's been this like, yeah, but who have they beaten? They've had an easy Big 12 schedule. Their non-conference schedule was very easy as well because of what Oregon State is, and they almost lost that game. Can they go on the road and play a tier 1 Big 12 team to a draw or to a win? And the Cougars were up 24-0. They dog-walked Arizona State for most of this game. Austin Armstrong and that defense deserves some flowers because I think going into the season, the easy part to buy in was that the offense was going to be better. New offensive coordinator, new quarterback, whole new offensive line. You bring in guys like Amari Thomas and Dean Connors to work around him. The Cougars are going to score more points than they did last year. But Shield Wood's gone. They lose A.J. Halsey and Jeremiah Wilson and A.J. Holmes. And, are they going to be able to not take as big? Would the step forward offensively be bigger than the step back defensively? Well, they haven't taken the step back defensively. Austin Armstrong has been fantastic. They do so many things defensively to confuse offenses. You could tell Arizona State had no idea what was going on. And then offensively, Connor Wigman throws the ball 22 times, 17 completions. He runs at 21. Just an absolute beast.
Is he the best quarterback in the Big 12 the last couple of weeks? Like, this is insane. He's running QB power.
Hey, right. That's the thing is like when the game is on the line, it is Connor Wigman power run. And like that is, I'm sitting in a press box last night with a bunch of Aggie reporters who watched Connor Wigman play for 3 years. Be it 15 games because of all the injuries. And it's like, who is this guy? And so, I think some of it's on him. I think he's gotten healthier. I think he's gotten leaner. I think he's kind of leaned in to this style of play. But I also think a lot of credit needs to go to Willie Fritz and Slade Nagel of kind of what they've turned him into, what they've turned this offense into. They ran the ball 48 times to 22 passes. Like they grounded and pounded Arizona State into submission on the road in Tempe in a place that they had just beaten Texas Tech.
Yeah, and Connor Wegman we knew he was a one tough SOB at A&M, but he's proven that at Houston too, because I don't know how he stayed in the game after Arizona State's safety basically speared him with a 20-yard head start running at his head. Like that was that was textbook targeting.
Yeah.
Like that was what you draw up on the official handbook. Don't do this. And he stayed in the game.
And they set the tone early. Their first drive is a field goal, 10-play drive. Second drive, 10 plays again. They get that one into the touchdown. A 4:31 time of possession, 5:27 time of possession. And then on the other side, they're forcing some 3 and out, some quick plays. Arizona State has that 11-play drive to start the game and missed the field goal attempt. And so like they set the tone early and made Arizona State try to play catch-up ball. And that's when Houston has you. I don't think Tech got on them early and that got Houston out of their game plan. I don't think this Cougars team's one that's going to like come back on you and storm back from 17 points down. They need a lead to get into their style of fight, and they absolutely were able to pull that off against the Sun Devils. And then another player I think we need to point out is Tanner Koziel.
Oh, yeah.
He is really good. 7 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. A really, really good football player. They don't have Stephon Johnson right now, who just had surgery. So Koziel, Amari Thomas, like those guys stepping up is big. Harvey Broussard having a couple of catches. Like they've needed some guys to step up around him. And Koziel's been a great late find from the portal. And
we do need to say that they did this despite heavy hearts. The win was awesome. It was sweet for the program too, because strength conditioning coach Kurt Hester passed away that morning at age of 61 from melanoma, stage 4 battles. So prayers out to the Houston community, because I know Kurt Hester had a huge, huge impact on that program.
Yeah, for sure. And then lastly, defensively, I think we need to mention Eddie Walls III, 3 sacks. So big time effort there from him. Another player who was a relatively late transfer portal spring addition, if my memory serves.
Yeah, I need to eat crow on the Austin Armstrong bit, because I was such a doubter. I just thought they lost too much in the portal in the spring window. I thought, he got his play calling duties revoked at Florida. I just didn't see the vision really, but that's why I'm not Willie Fritz. Many reasons I'm not Willie Fritz.
Yeah, and I think being with Fritz helps these coaches, right? It elevates them. I think Fritz deserves some credit for what goes on, especially defensively there at Houston, old school defensive coach himself. So Houston's playing really good defense. The offense is what it is. And that's effective if you can build a lead and play your style of game. And you look at their schedule and it opens up for them. Like this can I talk you into 10-win Houston? Because I think if you look at their schedule, I mean, they got Houston and Baylor at the end there, but they play UCF. I think they play West Virginia as well. Like they have the opportunity to really go on a run. I joked like in the press box that, at 6-1, I thought I had overestimated it. They may start 9-1 because their next two are West Virginia at home and then at UCF.
All right. Well, we just talked about one of the best coaching jobs in the Big 12. Now let's go to Baylor, which they're bottoming out now, Craven, after a 41-20 loss to number 21 Cincinnati. You wrote in the postgame column, the Dave Aranda has run its course at Baylor. So for our last existential Dave Aranda discussion, the floor is yours. We're not going to discuss it anymore after this.
Yeah, game-wise, it was just another one of those where the offense had to play great, and it didn't. Sawyer Robertson's 18 of 26 for 137 yards, just couldn't create a lot of big plays. Bryson Washington, I don't think he got a carry in the second half. He might be in concussion protocol. And so, you're dealing with some young guys at running back, no receiver with a long, they didn't have a completion over 16 yards yesterday. So Cincinnati just sat back and said, hey, go 10, 12 plays. We don't think you can. And then defensively, we don't think that you could stop us, and they couldn't. Another team that just ran all over Baylor, 50 carries for 265 yards. Like I said last week against TCU, if your run game is struggling, go play the Bears. And Cincinnati's run game wasn't even struggling. So I just don't see how you continue on from here. They continuously give up more points to a team than they average. Cincinnati, another one. They give up 40 plus points again. They are 112th in rush defense, 106th in total defense, 123rd in sacks, 111th in tackles for loss, 89th in forced fumbles. They give up 41.28% of third downs. They are 100th in red zone touchdown percentage allowed. They do nothing defensively that is good. The head coach is the defensive coordinator. Usually the mulligans are, well, you can go hire a new coordinator, but he's already done that multiple times before he landed on, well, I guess I need to do this. They took a slight step forward in 2024, but this was supposed to be the year. This was supposed to be the year where we saw what Baylor under Aranda could be. And we are seeing what Baylor under Aranda is, and that's a 500-ish football team that isn't good on the side of the ball he's in control of. And so I don't get how you convince the Baylor fan base that year 7 is going to be any different. And I don't get in this sport, look around at the coaches who get year 7. They're better than this, right? Like 500.
So many chances.
500 coaches do not get to year 7. You are not taking this seriously if Dave Aranda is your head coach to start 2026. That's just what it is.
I agree. You put it perfectly in the postgame column. There are no more cards to play. He can't say, oh, I'm going to get another defensive coordinator in here. He can't say, oh, we got to wait for this transfer portal class to come in. It's done.
And the good stuff is leaving. Sawyer Robertson's not going to be there. Josh Cameron's not going to be there. Bryson Washington's probably going to go get paid somewhere else to go be a running back. And if you're Jake Spavital, let's say Mack Rhodes goes, the buyout's too much, and or we don't want to get into this coaching carousel. Because I do think this coaching carousel could be a detriment or a deterrent to a program like Baylor. So let's say they use that. Hey, there's going to be 30 openings. The pool is going to be diluted. We don't think we're going to get the kind of quality guy that we would get in most cycles. So we're going to use the money that we would save on the buyout to really bolster the roster, and we're going to go for it again. Why would Jake Spavital come back? To just be lame duck offensive coordinator, and now it's harder and harder to get a job. I don't get what the cards are left to play. I don't get what the audibles, what the mulligans are. Like, I just think it's run its course. And, if you sign up for another year of Dave Aranda, you sign up for another year of mediocrity and another year of McLean Stadium being empty. And if that's what you want to do, then great. But that is going to be the end result of this one.
Yeah, I think you wrote it in your post-game column too. When they play UCF and McLean, it's going to be dire.
Yeah.
Take a snapshot of that stadium and say, yeah, we're going to run it back with Dave Aranda next year.
I mean, at some point, you're losing more money at the stadium than you're saving by not buying them out.
I agree. So look, we've done this Dave Aranda existential discussion over and over and over again. I think everyone who listens knows our position. Whether it happens this year or the end of next year, it's done at this point. And you know why. All of Baylor Nation knows why. And yeah, I think it's just what is left to say.
Yeah, I mean, they are fourth in the pecking order inside their own state. In the Big 12, they are out of the 7 Power Four schools. The trajectory of Baylor is by far 7th.
Mm-hmm. So if there's one saving grace, Baylor didn't have the ugliest loss out of all the Texas teams, because that was SMU. Their 3-year conference winning streak comes to an end on a Wake Forest walk-off field goal that literally did not have an inch to spare. 13-12 win for Wake Forest, despite 5 turnovers. This SMU defense balled out. Rhett Lashley said the defense played the way they deserved to win. The offense did not play well enough to win. They had 0 points off 5 turnovers. I think it might be the worst game of the Rhett Lashley era at SMU.
Yeah, I can't think of a worse one offensively. This was
maybe Duke when they had 6 turnovers, but they won that game.
That's true.
That's true.
That Duke one was pretty brutal. They just could create nothing through the air. I mean, they had 171 yards on 39 passing attempts. Like, they did not have a receiver over their tight end. RJ Maryland had 51, but Hudson had 4 for 21. Brinson 3 for 13. Just most of it's running backs, tight ends, check down stuff. No touchdowns through the air. Kevin Jennings with an interception and a fumble. That fumble was big because it happened on like the 15. Wake Forest goes and scores a touchdown in a game that, points were at a premium. They only had to go 15 yards for their touchdown drive. So, Kevin Jennings is hobbled. Hats off to him for going out there and playing. We saw him against Clemson, kind of gutted out. He's clearly not 100%. They needed the run game to be explosive today, and they just could not get anything from Chris Johnson or TJ Harden or McFall.
So the Kevin Jennings piece of this, he is a warrior. I think he's proven that with the way he's gutting out injuries this year and last year. He's a fighter. And also him running out of bounds on 3rd down instead of getting the conversion and them having to punt is disheartening for me. And he did it last week too against Clemson, where he threw it out of bounds on 3rd and 1 when he had a clear rushing lane. So that it's tough because he's not healthy and he would get decapitated if he got that 1st down. And maybe the coaches are telling him, like, dude, we need you. Preserve your body at all costs. But as a guy watching and putting myself in a fan's position, that's hard to see.
Yeah, I think it is mostly the coaching staff being like, hey, man, we really need you out there. Like, don't put your body in danger. You'd imagine there's certain situations in which that gets thrown out the window. I feel like we've both watched Kevin Jennings enough, even dating back to South Oak Cliff, to know that he's pretty willing to put his body on the line typically. So yeah, I guess I chalk that up to injury and circumstance right now. But they needed every single yard in a game that they scored 12 points. You cannot you cannot turn over another team 5 times, hold them to 13 points, and then lose the game like that. I think every single week, if you offered Rhett Lashley that defensive performance, he would take it 9 times out of 10. You got to win that one. This SMU team was bound to trip up. They're not a great team this year. I think they're a solid to good team this year. We mentioned it on the midweek show. All the analytics had this as like basically a coin flip, like 50-50. And they were absolutely right. Wake Forest was a bad matchup for SMU. I think it was the run game. Like, they could get nothing going in the run game that allowed Wake Forest to kind of blanket the receivers. There's just no explosive plays. And that's typically where SMU has success as they pop a couple, either in the run game or in the pass game or both. They're able to get some explosive plays, just not much of that against Wake Forest.
If you want a picture of how this game went, take this end of the half sequence. Wake Forest muffs a punt up 10-6 when they could have got the ball back at midfield. Kevin Jennings throws a pick. Wake Forest then throws an interception. Then SMU fumbles the ball for the third turnover in less than 1 minute. It was gross. It was gross on the crosswalk, baby.
Yeah. Not a game you would like to rewatch again. Film study, probably not going to be fun, especially for that offense. But they have to figure out a way to find some explosive plays. Big game coming up this week against Miami at home.
This was a textbook trap game, and you called it on the midweek show. You just come off an emotional win against Clemson. Miami's coming up next week. This was kind of your letdown spot, classic letdown spot, and they took the bait.
Yeah, and the quarterback's hurt. And this is a team that is pretty quarterback dominant. And when Jennings hasn't been great, SMU struggled. Well, you mentioned that Duke game last year, BYU, when they eventually set Preston Stone down. Like, it is a quarterback-centric offense, a quarterback-centric team. And when Kevin Jennings does not play well, SMU struggles. And that was the case on Saturday.
All right, another pretty gross game. At least one side was gross. Texas Tech shuts out Oklahoma State 42-0. It's the first shutout since 2005 for the Red Raiders. As an interim coach, Doug Meacham for Oklahoma State midweek said, I think they have 5 individuals who've given them 5 times more money than anyone else on the planet. Do you think the players were like, dude, come on? Why give them any ammo at all before we go there?
I don't know. Doug Meacham's gonna say some stuff.
He's liable to say something.
Yeah. This was a matchup between the highest payroll in the Big 12 and the lowest payroll in the Big 12. And so I do think that there is something to that. Oklahoma State just doesn't have any players. Like, how many players at Oklahoma State would be in the 2 deep at Texas Tech, much less in the starting lineup? Like, not many. It's just not a talented team. It definitely looked like P4 versus G5, which is why Oklahoma State's looking for a new job. And Jacoby Williams starts it with the kickoff return touchdown. And I was like, okay, well, that's all I need to watch there.
And it's over.
Like, this one is over. Not a lot of quarterback run game, as we talked about. Will Hammond only with 4 carries. I think that was good. Cameron Dickey got 13. We got to see Mitch Griffiths in the game for a little while, throwing 13 catches or 13 passes and stuff like that. So a good game for Texas Tech, a much needed spot in the schedule, especially with Baron Morton being injured. It allowed him to have another week without having to worry about anything. And now they can really kind of get back on track and focus on the late push, because I think that they have to be 11-1 and in the Big 12 championship to have any chance to make the college football playoff. I do not think a 10-2 Texas Tech gets in to the college football playoff. So, like, they have no margin of error. They have to win out. Getting Morton back healthy, especially before that BYU game, I think is huge. But they go on the road to Kansas State this weekend, and that is not very easy.
Yeah, that's
either.
sneaky.
So they need Morton back. We'll check around today, tomorrow. I'd imagine early this week we get an idea of how healthy Morton can be.
All right, last game of the Big 12. It's TCU beating West Virginia 23-17. I be honest, I don't have much on this game. I mean, good for TCU to not have that letdown spot totally. I mean, it was ugly, but it's always ugly when you go to Morgantown. Like, it's a tough place to play.
Yeah, Josh Hoover took a pretty big hit early on, and Sonny Dykes said he didn't think he was the same after that, and the offense wasn't the same after that. We'll have to monitor that, see kind of what happens there. I saw this on Twitter. I think Matt Jennings tweeted this, a really good TCU fan, smart TCU fan. It's like TCU probably like leads the country in wins that don't feel like wins.
That's very true.
Like, they just don't leave the greatest taste in your mouth. They go up 20, they're up 20-7 at halftime, and then they're just still in this dogfight down the stretch with a team that has a quarterback named Scotty Fox Jr.
All-time name.
Like, what are we doing here? Kavorian Barnes only with 8 carries, but the run game was okay. I guess, they ran the ball a decent amount of times. 2.9 yards a carry is not great, but just not the greatest game offensively from Josh Hoover. I think it was because of that hit. 59 QBR is not what you want, but you get the win, you get to bowl eligible. And now you have a really tough schedule down the stretch. And, if you can win 2 out of those 4 and get to 8-4, I think that's a good season, even if it won't be overly satisfying in Fort Worth.
Yeah, when Sonny Dykes last week banged the table and said, in case anyone forgot, we are the winningest team in the Big 12 in the last 3.5 years. He had to remind people because it doesn't feel like that. Because Matt Jennings is completely correct. They lead the league in wins that don't feel like wins.
Yeah, and 12 of those wins came in 22. So they haven't been they've been about a 500 team in Big 12 play since then. But it gets tough for them. And TCU, I think the way that they have to address the last end of the season is like to play spoiler. They get an idle week, which is huge, especially with that hit I just mentioned with Josh Hoover. Get Convoy Barnes closer and closer to 100%. You got some bumps and bruises. They played a lot of games in a row because remember they had that early off week after playing North Carolina in week 1. So like they've played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 games in a row. So they need an off week, but they close with Iowa State, BYU, Houston, Cincinnati. BYU, Houston, and Cincinnati are all in the Big 12 race. So while maybe they can't factor in to the Big 12 championship, I don't think a 7-2 gets you in there. They can play spoiler and maybe win a game or 2 against those teams and kind of have an impact on who plays in the Big 12 championship. I think that's kind of the carrot for this team, and they're going to need a better running game to get a win or 2 in that group.
That's such a gauntlet to end the season. I mean, they could legit. On paper, they could go 0-4 to end the season. I don't think they will. I think they'll get 2 of those wins, but like that is just, and that's not even like, TCU is not good this year. That's just how much of a gauntlet that last 4 games is.
Yeah, because you're at BYU, at Houston, home against Cincinnati. Like they may be an underdog in all 4. They're going to be an underdog in 3 of 4 for sure. Maybe at home against Iowa State, they're a favorite with the Cyclones kind of falling back down to earth. But their team total entering the season was 6.5. It felt low because of the talent in Fort Worth right now, but it's because of the schedule. They've played everyone that's pretty hard in this group except for TCU. They're at Arizona State, at Kansas State, and now they back into that schedule. So they need to win 1 more to get over. I think if they can split the last 4, go 8-4, I think that's a solid year to build on in Fort Worth.
Well, speaking of cashing in on the over bet, Rice knocks off UConn 37-34 in double OT. The Rice over cashes. It got a little dicey there, but we did it. Congrats to Scott Abel. Quentin Jackson had 256 yards and 4 touchdowns in this game. He had never had more than 1 touchdown in a game before this. Which goes nuclear.
Yeah, an incredible game. And, Rice was one of those teams that needed an off week, needed an idle week. They had played 7 straight games to start the season. They were beat up. And I think it also, especially with the new offense, it's nice to get back to doing you. You get into the heat of a season and there becomes this kind of rhythm to it. And it's hard to just get back to basics and work on yourself because you're always game planning and recovering and going through film. The idle week, I think, allowed Rice to get back to its triple option kind of basics and kind of work on some stuff and get some of those things ironed out. And you could tell they were a lot better this week. 56 carries, 300 yards, had 4 rushing touchdowns, averaged 5.4 on the ground. That's what you want to see from there. Chase Jenkins with a great passing game. 17 of 22 for 191, no interceptions. The Owls defense kind of led this group early on in the season. They've taken a step back the last 2 games. They gave up 61 to UTSA. They gave up 34 to UConn. But 24 of those were in the first half, and then they only gave up 3 in the second half before overtime. So the adjustments worked. Rice they've been decimated at cornerback. They're not going to be a good passing defense on the edge this year. I think that's just what they're going to have to deal with down the stretch. But you're starting to see glimpses of what this offense can be, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
I think this season is a success, even if they don't win any of these next 4, because it is another gauntlet for them in these last 4. I mean, Memphis is going to be tough. UAB is probably the one they hope they can. They could reasonably, they won't be underdogs in that game. I feel like, is that fair to say? They might still be underdogs, but it'll be a close line.
Yeah, I think they might be fair. It might be a pick 'em. It's at home. It's in historic Rice Stadium, so that helps. But yeah, I mean, that's the only one that they really have a on paper shot at because it's Memphis, North Texas, and USF. Other than that,
So bowl eligibility is going to be an uphill battle, but I think it's been a successful year for Scott Abel.
yeah, I mean, you hit the over on the win total, as you said. If you can beat UAB and get to 5 wins, I think that'd be great. And it's proof of concept, right? Like when you see the 50 carries for 300 yards and the running back go off like that, you're like, oh, okay, that's what it's starting to look like. The passing game was there to provide balance. You're starting to see glimpses. Now it's just about getting like the appropriate talent and the right kind of personnel fit into there.
All right, last game on the docket. We talked about North Texas. They're going to play Rice upcoming in the final month of the season. They stunted on Charlotte, 54-20. UNT is 7-1 for the first time since 1977. Drew Mestemaker sets the school record with 608 passing yards in a single game. It's also the American single game passing yards record. Unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, I got into Louisiana Friday, drove. Sam Kahn, my buddy from The Athletic, is here with his family as well. And so we're staying in the same hotel. So we went out to dinner to eat some Cajun food, had a good time. We're watching North Texas on our phones, actually, because they couldn't change the television screen, which is, I don't understand how that works. But anyway,
that's such an excuse. They know how to change the television screen. They just
it was on like American Funny. So they said it was like, oh, that's the only thing it plays is like the funny videos or whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But North Texas is minus 26.5. Louisiana is a legal gambling state, so I didn't have to like deal with the bookie or whatever. I could just download FanDuel and like make bets. So of course I take North Texas over and minus 26.5 because they're playing Charlotte on the road, and Charlotte's abysmal. And you look at it, you're like, holy crap, like Charlotte's hanging in this game. And then by the time we had driven from the restaurant back to the hotel, which wasn't very long, all of a sudden they were up by like 30 points. And that's kind of what this North Texas offense does to you. It's not that just like every drive they go and dominate. Like they can be a little herky-jerky. But when the Mean Green get it going, when the Eric Morris offense like kind of hits something, man, does it go off. Like it just snowballs in a hurry. Mestemaker was 608. I tweeted because, I don't know how much I'm obsessed with the Mike Leach stuff and how Mummy and those guys. And I love the stories of them when they were at like Valdosta or Kentucky. Like they're on the headsets with the SIDs knowing where the stats are. Mm-hmm. Right? How many more yards we need to break this record, or how many more yards we need to like lead the nation in this or whatever. Like they had the SID on the, like they wanted to make, because they're trying to spread the offense and to get better jobs and all that kind of stuff that Leach and Mummy were always up to. When that run broke, that gave North Texas kind of the dominating lead, and normally Mestemaker would be sat for the rest of the game. But the drive happened too fast and the run was too long to where they couldn't get him to 608. They couldn't get him to the record. You knew he was coming back out there, and you knew he was throwing the ball because Eric Morris is as close. I think Holgerson and Morris are as close to Leach as you can get from a personality standpoint. And you absolutely knew. And I tweeted, Eric Morris is a Mike Leach disciple. He is acutely aware of where Mestemaker is with his stats. And I get a text like a couple hours later, like, we absolutely did. The
previous record was 607 and Mestemaker got 608.
Right. It's not right. And then as soon as he did it in the middle of a drive, he was taken out. Like he was only out there throwing the ball to break the record. So, and good, like you want to write yourselves into the record books and have that. And, what I think is a bummer about North Texas this season right now is nationally, everything gets spun towards like, where are these guys going to be next year? You see accounts with like Drew Mestemaker going off, and it's like, where is Drew going to play next year? And all, and I just think that stinks. Like maybe that's all true. Maybe Eric Morris won't be there. Maybe Caleb Hawkins and Mestemaker and those guys won't be there. Skylar Cassidy and all that kind of stuff, but they are now. And you're 7-1. You play Navy at home at 11 a.m. this coming up weekend. USF just lost. Like you got a chance to really go do something big here. Enjoy the moment because they're fleeting.
I got an anecdote for that. When we were at the Texas Ball Tonight show at the Dave Campbell studio, we got a bunch of interns who are UNT students or UNT grads, and they're all watching the Charlotte game and saying, wow, Drew Messmaker is going to make $1 million next year at some Power 4 school. And it's like, they're rooting for him. They love him. They want him to go get paid, but it's also kind of sad that like that's where their minds are in this season.
Yeah, no doubt. And that, that's not just a North Texas thing. That's a college football thing. But I wish we could live where our feet are and enjoy it, because especially at the G5 level, like this stuff doesn't happen very often. Like you're going to catch lightning in a bottle and you hope to ride it to something big, and then it's going to have to reset. And that's just going to have to be life G5 everywhere, not just North Texas, pretty much everywhere. The Mean Green are they're the most fun team in the state to watch, right? Like if you were to rank enjoyability, watchability, a lot of fun. They scored 27 points in the first 3 quarters. They scored 27 in the fourth. They just put it on you.
Also, Drew Messmaker gets a ton of credit, but so do the UNT wide receivers, because Sam Kahn had this stat. He looked it up. 395 yards came after the catch for those wide receivers.
Yeah, Wyatt Young with 190 overall. Cameron Dorner 117. Landon Size with 114. So you got 3 different wide receivers over 100 yards receiving there. And then your running back adds 2 touchdown receptions on top of his running game stuff. So, and he's a true freshman. So just a great team for North Texas. I think they're going to get to double-digit wins. If they can beat Navy, they have a real chance to go play for an American Conference Championship, depending on how things shake out. And so, I mean, they're still, of the teams in the state with college football playoff chances, I would still rank North Texas 3rd behind A&M and Texas Tech. I think North Texas has a chance. If they're 11-1 to go to the American and win that conference championship, I think they get in, and, they can beat anybody.
Well, it's going to be an exciting stretch to close out the year, because there are, you mentioned 3 teams with legit college football playoff aspirations. I mean, there's more than that. Like Houston and Texas are both there too, but I just putting on my skeptic hat. I just don't think Houston and Texas will go to the college football playoff. But you could convince me A&M, North Texas has a definite chance here. And then what's Texas Tech? Yeah, of course.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, still a big year, still a big season in front of us for a few teams.
Any closing thoughts from this week, Craven?
No, it's kind of a good week. The state of Texas kind of had 2 kind of average 500 weeks in a row. They went 7-2 this weekend, so pretty good. I think the coaching carousel stuff is going to be nuts. I think the only hot seat job to monitor is Baylor, but it's the hirings that may make this nuts. If you're Houston, you better lock up Willie Fritz, especially if LSU opens, with his success at Tulane and stuff like that. I don't think LSU would do that because they're dumb.
It's not splashy enough.
Right. Which is why I think the way that coaching searches happen and the way we grade this stuff is broken. We look for the splash. We look to win the press conference. We look to have the new shiny object. And then we wonder why all of these schools 4 years later have $50 million that they have to buy out a coach for. I think the Kurt Cignetti, look what Keeler's doing at Temple, Willie Fritz at Houston, Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. You don't have to come from another big school. If you're a winner and you know how to coach, you're a winner and you know how to coach, and that typically transfers over. I think eventually in college football, especially with rev share, maybe as these buyouts get insane, there needs to be kind of a recalibration of how we go higher, who we go higher, what are the metrics, and how do we judge this stuff? It just seems so silly now. But anyway,
Elko wasn't a splash hire, and look where A&M is now.
100%. You don't need to win the press conference. You don't need to win the message boards. You need to win the games, because then all of the village idiots come back around on you. Mm-hmm. Right? Anybody who disparaged A&M for hiring Mike Elko is not anymore. Anybody at Indiana who didn't think Kurt Cignetti could move up and win in the Big Ten looks very dumb. Everybody who thought Lincoln Riley was a home run at USC looks dumb too. You know what I mean? Like those Brian Kelly is about to get fired. I think ball coaches are ball coaches, and you just go hire good ones. If you're Houston, you have one of the best ones in the country in a spot he wants to be at. I think he's going to retire at Houston, but with Morris and Fritz and maybe Lashley in the SEC.
Yep.
So anyway, I can talk coaching stuff all day long, but it's something to watch. I mean, we're getting into November. So these chess pieces are going to start moving. So it's going to be a hectic final 6 weeks of the college football season. I'm sure by the time this is out, there will be another firing or two.
Yeah, both hectic on the field and off the field. Mm-hmm. It's a perfect storm brewing right now. So we'll have you covered for all of it. Stick with us through the end of this year, man. It's been a lot of fun. So far, it's going to be a lot of fun to end the year. For senior writer Mike Craven, I am your host, Carter Yates, signing off for the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast.